Hi guys, we're back with the extruder build. Go ahead and bust out your parts list. Extruder assembly number 8, some washers, nuts. These are the tension springs. These are silver hex. PT means partial thread. That's specific so that we have minimal gaps on the bearings. An array of M3x8, whatever. These are plastic parts. 2 gears, little top plate for that. The block where all of the magic happens. Little MK8 gear, full spacer to make sure that it has the right amount of room. All this goes on here, and this is all sandwiched with the second plate that goes right here. Hopefully that's in view. Yep, it's in view. All right, how are we gonna start this? We're gonna start with the M525 silver bolt. We're going to put it through the cover of the extruder, and it should just shove through there. And then you're going to want to really make sure it's seated down in there. Don't crack that plastic plate, but it should seat right down into it. Your next step would be to, I believe there's one washer on the top side. I would put the smooth side facing the bearing. And then you're going to have a bearing. And you have 2 washers on the opposite side of the bearing. And then you're going to send this through the tension arm. So this is the idler, I guess you could call it, the idler pulley. And so you can kind of, since this is hexed and it's seated in there, you can kind of thread that through. It's kind of a something. You're going to start running into the plastic pretty quickly though. Okay, so once you get pretty far, then you should be able to take an M5 nut, thread it on there. At this point, I would just do something like this. That should sink that down nice and tight. Your next step, you may want to make sure that this hole is open. It should be fine. You shouldn't have to drill any of this out. Your next step is going to be this silver, or not silver, but that wood screw, number 4, 1/4 inch wood screw. Send it on into this side over here. I believe it has to be pretty flush. You definitely want to make sure it's seated in there well. Make sure everything's good and snug. And this guy should still run through. Alright, so this is your tensioner arm. We're just going to set that aside for a minute. The next thing you need to do is you're going to take 2 of these M5x25 M3s, drop them down through the top plate here of the frame, the YZE frame. They feel like they are really tight toleranced, so looks like they're wanting to be threaded. Maybe they'll loosen up as we kind of start getting them going through. Maybe not. Maybe we'll have to send them all the way through. Thread them. Okay. That one went through. Dropped in. This one was a little tight, and then it kind of started snugging up, so I'm going to just kind of strip it like that. There we go. Alright, it should be loose now. It needs to be loose enough to turn on its own. This is the extruder block. It's specific which way it goes. There is a nice smooth curved entrance for filament that would come in that way. The other side is like a cylinder has been notched out of it. So it'll go with the filament feed in the back, the smooth side in the back, and the cylinder in the front. As you can see here, it should go without too much challenge here. There it goes. There it those. You may have to just kind of thread the bolt nuts a little bit, but it shouldn't be too much difficulty. These are all pretty tight tolerance. Let's see, I think this guy goes in next. It's been a while since I put one of these together, at least recently. Okay. Oh, that is not the right way to do it. Don't do what I just did. This is backwards. Reading and doing other things all at once is an effective way to teach, to learn and teach at the same time. All right. So, of course, this is specifically oriented, and I've got it backwards. This guy should go like that. Yeah. So that these two are facing each other. There we go. Easy to go on, more difficult to go off. You're also going to have another M3 bolt that goes in through here, this top corner piece. Start by sending it through just a little bit, and you're going to put, I believe you have to put two. And the reason for that, those two washers on the inside, is this has to be low enough that the head of this hex bolt clears under here. It has to be dropped. So this could be a bit of a trick to get all this in together and thread through here. Once you got it, you're gold. Looks like it still wants to be thread. Alright, and again, make sure that this clears easily, closes all the way, as it should. Then you're going to add your M3s. Let's see. Nut on the bottom of those three bolts that you put through. Some tricky bolts, tricky nuts to get threaded. There's not a lot of room in there. Those are nice and snug. Make sure they're snug. And those pliers really come in handy on this build. And the last one. Now, this one, you may not want to go super snug with it. Because you want to make sure that there's still free movement. So maybe do that a few times. And then I don't even know if you should back it off just a little bit. It should be okay. Yeah, it should be fine. All right, now the next thing you're going to build is the drive shaft to this thing. This bolt's going to go up through the center, like so. But it's going to have a few pieces that intersect with it. Starts with a bearing. And then the next thing you have is your MK8 gear. So this gear may have to pull that little set screw out and thread it on. So you got a bearing, MK8 gear, and then your spacer is last. The spacer is just a tight fit often. once you get it past the threads, it should just slip downward. There it goes. Okay. Once you get that little black spacer past the threads, it should just slip down and rest up against the top of the MK8. Notice the MK8, the teeth are on the top side. Alright, it's pretty obvious. Then this should just slip right up in there, like that. You should hear almost like a little click. And that is done on that side. These are the tensioners. I gave enough washers that you can put a washer there, but I found I don't think you have to have a washer right there. The next thing is this guy. So you're going to take your last bearing, slide it over the top. You need, I believe, 2 spacers, which is pretty important. Curved side towards the bearing. For some reason, it feels correct that way. Take your M5 nut. It's going to seat in your large gear. It's kind of a tight fit, but it seats great. It's like perfect. Once it goes, it's like gold. Okay. And then it'll probably seat the rest of the way by just threading it tighter. Have to hold the back. Do something like this. Sure that when you are getting close, that the bearings find their spot. You're not compressing the bearing into something you shouldn't be pressing it into. It just snugs up. And it should be pretty tough there. This should ride smoothly. You may hear that off the bat. That's actually the set screw on the MK8 gear is rubbing the inside. It should be okay. Over time, it should wear off a little plastic. It's not enough resistance to really cause any problems. Just barely feel it right there. No, I'm wrong. It's actually this bolt right here. That bolt's actually scraping. Just the inside isn't scraping. Alright, so we're going to pull this guy back off. In order to do that, just grab it with some pliers. And the more you do this, once you do this 3 or 4 times, it'll go fast. It'll just spin right off. So dismantling the extruder is actually pretty fast and easy. That's the one I forgot to tighten. I forgot to tighten that on the build. Why is it e-motor build? Probably a good idea to make sure everything's tight before you move on. There we go. Just double check it. Yeah, it's a little snug. Alright. Anyhow. So again, it should start loosening up where you can just like thread the wheel on and then just hold it by thumb. You can quickly remove that extruder gear, but you probably, just to make sure it's tight, probably want to use the pliers. Okay. Yeah, that sounds and feels good. Okay, the last piece of the puzzle is, well, there's 2 pieces, I guess. You've got these long M3x50s with the springs. You can put washers here, you can put them back here. I don't know if you absolutely need them back there. These guys thread in to the block a little bit, and then they're going to thread into M3 back here. Hopefully they'll catch that M3. Yep, feel it coming through the nut. Right there. And then you'll probably tighten these so that the M3 by 50 goes about halfway to the motor. Yeah. So you'll tighten it so that it ends right about here. So it's somewhere halfway between here and here. And you're going to vary that. It's a tension adjuster. You also are going to want to double check that this M5 nut here doesn't crash into that bearing. So hopefully you've got this adjusted so that it's flat where it hits that, where it runs into that, and that'll reduce the chances of anything preventing your extruder from extruding smoothly. Okay, now the very last piece is this little, the small gear. Put this guy on upside down because it's easier to assemble and remove other components. Okay, so he goes in like that. Bam. I don't know if you guys saw it, just slipped right in once it went. Make sure that it is down as far as it can. So when you look through the hole, you don't see any metal. This guy should just right in through it, no problem. When you start threading this through, you can see it come through into the hole, so we've gone too far. Back it out a little bit. Check your flat edge of your motor. Drop it right on. If you've gone too far, you're going to have to get under the gear a little bit. Double check that they're aligned to each other, the tops and bottom. Tighten a little bit. You don't need it super tight. You just need to make sure that set screw hits that flat spot on the motor shaft. Just hand tight. It just doesn't take much, and it's not going to come off. The very final thing, because there's always one more thing, and I'm not really sure what these bolts are from. I think those I must have accidentally left in the manual, left over. Oh, I don't know if I just showed you that, but this guy, you can compress and pull, and usually it'll come out. If it doesn't, you may compress, rotate, and then pull. And there's little teeth in there that grab the Teflon. So this is super, super important, guys. I can't stress this enough. You have to make sure that this is assembled. The two metal plates are squishing this block before you start threading this in. And then secondly, you got to get this threaded in straight. It could be a real challenge because I've redesigned it, and the print, I don't know how well it really came out, but take your time on this and get this right. You want to get this threading just right. The better the start, the better the end result. So once you get a thread or two in, well, see if I can even do it. Definitely want to double check yourself, and a little bit of an angle is okay. It should kind of fix itself a little bit. You may want to grab some pliers and kind of force it straight as you continue until you've built up your own kind of path with the teeth of the fitting. Okay. Because the real grip is going to come deep inside of this. This is a NPT or NFT, or I don't know. Basically, the threading is conic, so as you go deeper, it gets tighter and tighter. FNP threading, I believe it's called. I don't know. Some of you guys probably know what I'm talking about. Okay, so that feels pretty straight, and you want to look at it from different angles and make sure that it looks like it's going straight in. You don't want it coming in at an angle or anything like that. Once you're confident that you've got it, you got to send it in pretty far to get the best results. If it's not in super far, the teeth on the inside of this fitting can scrape the filament, can cause some strange issues. So you don't have to seat it all the way, but you can see that is pretty deep in there. Almost all the threads are completely in the black plastic, the extruder block. Probably get a little more distance on it. Yeah, looks pretty good. And then this would just click into there. All right, guys. That is the extruder assembly. These were extra parts, one for under here, maybe two for over here. I'm not really sure. This must have not been included. The two, oh, they're not mentioned. Yeah, I didn't actually mention these. These are not in the manual. I just have them sitting out here for some reason. Okay. All right, there it is, guys. Extruder. It's finished. You got tension. You got a gear wheel that moves freely. Everything's looking pretty good. And next we are going to do the wheel plate assembly right here for the table. All right.